Jungkook and Taehyung's journey on the plane to Korea was one of those moments that quietly touched the hearts of many fans, despite taking place away from the camera and airport crowds. After a long series of activities abroad, this return is not just an ordinary air trip, but a piece of time that feels personal, calm, and full of meaning for the two global stars. Since entering the plane, the atmosphere around Jungkook and Taehyung seemed different. No hustle and bustle like at the airport, no screaming or camera flashes. The aircraft cabin presents a quiet space that allows them to let go of their role as public figures and return to being themselves. Jungkook is seen wearing simple casual clothes, choosing comfort above all else. His face looked more relaxed, as if the burden of a dense schedule was slowly left on land. He had time to lean his head on the seat, looked out the window of the plane, noticed the multi-layered clouds and the vast sky that stretched. Taehyung sat not far from her, with an equally calm expression. It looks more silent, but not in a hollow sense. It is precisely the silence that radiates a sense of peace. Every now and then he turned to Jungkook, spoke briefly in a low voice, then smiled slightly. Their conversation seemed light, perhaps about simple things that were never known to the public, about fatigue, about plans for arrival in Korea, or just a small joke that only the two of them understood mid-flight. Jungkook appears to put on headphones, close his eyes, and try to rest. His face showed reasonable fatigue after a long journey. Taehyung, meanwhile, had time to open his phone, then put it back, choosing to look straight ahead. No excessive gestures, no need to perform. This moment reveals the most genuine closeness, a closeness built from time, trust, and long togetherness. For many fans, imagining this journey feels emotional. The plane carrying Jungkook and Taehyung to Korea is not just a means of transportation, but a symbol of return. In the air between the country they left behind and the waiting homeland, there's a short pause to breathe, reflect, and reassemble energy. This return marks the end of one series of journeys and the beginning of the next phase that in the stillness of the cabin, devoid of stage and spotlight. Jungkook and Taehyung's human side is rarely highlighted. They are not only idols with millions of fans, but two individuals who also feel fatigue, homesickness, and the need for tranquility. The way they sit side by side, sharing space without saying a word, speaks louder than thousands of interviews. This trip to Korea also feels special because it is done together. After going through various schedules and pressures, being together on the plane becomes a simple but meaningful form of support. It doesn't take much interaction to show closeness. Each other's presence is enough. Even in silence, there's a strong sense of mutual understanding. As soon as the plane approached Korean territory, the atmosphere seemed to change slowly. Jungkook opened his eyes, took off his headphones, and looked back out the window. Taehyung seemed to straighten up a bit, as if he realized that the house was getting closer. No celebration, no over. Expression, just warm serenity. For fans, this journey may just be a snippet of a story imagined from distance. But precisely therein lies its strength. Behind the glitter of the entertainment industry, there are simple moments like this that make up the great story of Jungkook and Taehyung. The plane ride to Korea was a reminder that despite their status as world stars, there are still two friends who are enjoying their return home in the most calm and humane way. This return is not just about arriving in a country, but about returning to a place that gives a sense of security, about closing one chapter of the journey and preparing to open a new one. And in the silence of the plane hovering in the sky, Jungkook and Taehyung live the moment in the most honest way. Simple, calm, and full of meaning. The journey continued in an almost inaudible atmosphere, as if time in the cabin was moving more slowly than the world outside. The cabin lights are dimmed, creating a warm atmosphere that makes each passenger dissolve in their individual thoughts. Jungkook leaned back, his breathing regular, while Taehyung stayed awake, looking straight ahead with a gaze that was hard to decipher. There is calm, but also lingering fatigue that can only be felt after living life under the relentless spotlight. Every now and then flight attendants pass by with slow steps, keeping the atmosphere quiet. Jungkook opened his eyes for a moment, nodded politely, then closed them again. Taehyung noticed the scene briefly, then turned towards the window. The sky outside appeared darker, with layers of clouds slowly shifting. Behind the scenery, there were thousands of kilometers they were leaving behind, and in front of them, a house that had been longed for too long that a brief conversation ensued between them. Not long, not seriously. Only a few short sentences are pronounced in a low tone. Jungkook smiled a little, a smile rarely seen in public. Softer, more relaxed. Taehyung replied with the same expression. Then both of them went silent again. There is no need to fill the silence, because silence itself is already felt enough. For Jungkook, this trip was like a moment of reflection. Behind closed eyes, things may cross. Hectic schedules, meetings, cheering fans, and the pressure that comes with popularity. But at the same time, there is a sense of relief that this plane brought him home. No matter how far it goes, Korea is always a turning point. Taehyung was lost in his own thoughts. He is known to be sensitive and soulful, and long journeys like this often give him room for reflection. Sitting on a plane, away from the noise of the outside world, becomes a rare opportunity to be completely silent. No cámaras, no expectations. Only himself, the sky, and the journey continue to move forward. Time passed imperceptibly. The clock on the cabin screen slowly changed, signaling that the distance to the goal was getting closer. Jungkook got up completely, stretched out a little, then turned his head towards Taehyung. There were brief glances that met each other, wordless, yet understanding. It was as if the long journey was almost over in that moment. Their togetherness felt so real. Not as group mates on a grandiose stage, but as two people who have gone through a lot together. From trainee days, debut pressure, to becoming a global icon, they grew up side by side. And now, in a plane hovering quietly in the air, that togetherness comes in its simplest form. When an announcement from the captain was heard, informing him that the plane would soon enter Korean airspace, the atmosphere in the cabin changed subtly. Some passengers began to prepare, seats were enforced, and seatbelts were checked. Jungkook and Taehyung did the same, but their expressions remained calm. There is no excessive euphoria, just a sense of certainty that they will soon arrive. Jungkook looked out the window again. The light of the city began to be seen from a distance, small dots that were slowly becoming clearer. The sight elicited a feeling that is hard to describe, a mixture of longing, relief, and readiness to return to face the following days. Taehyung followed Jungkook's gaze, and for a moment, the two enjoyed the same view without saying anything. This trip, although short in public memory, had its own meaning. This is where they can pause, away from the spotlight, and feel a sense of normality they rarely get. The plane becomes a temporary safe space, a place where they don't have to pretend to be strong or always smiling for the world. When the wheels of the aircraft finally touched the runway, the subtle sound of the first impact was felt throughout the cabin. Jungkook sighed slowly. Taehyung lowered his head for a moment, then sat up straight again. Homecoming has arrived, but their emotional journey doesn't stop there. It is precisely from this simple moment that the strength to step into the next phase is slowly accumulating. For fans, the story of Jungkook and Taehyung's journey on a plane to Korea may be just an imagination assembled from small pieces of information. But the imagination is filled with warmth because it shows a side that is rarely seen, a side that is human, calm, and full of depth. Without drama, without excessive thrills, this journey becomes a story about coming home, about being together, and about two souls stepping forward in the simplest but most meaningful way.